Quick question. What killed the Roman Empire? If you said barbarians, you are mostly wrong. Yes, barbarian tribes did eventually cross Rome's borders. Yes, they did sack the city. But here is the thing. They were able to do that because Rome was already falling apart from the inside. Think of it like this. A healthy person can fight off a cold, but a person who is already sick, weak and malnourished, that same cold can kill them. Rome was already sick before the barbarians arrived. And what made Rome sick was something that should sound very familiar to you today. Too much money, rising prices, uncontrollable debt, a government spending far more than it was earning, and a series of bad economic decisions that compounded over centuries. In other words, inflation. Ancient Rome experienced something remarkably similar to what modern economies fear most, and it destroyed them from the inside. If you want to understand why great empires collapse, and why it is almost never about the army that invades, then this story is for you. This is the real reason Rome fell. Welcome to OP Vault.
To understand Rome's collapse, we first need to understand Rome at its peak. At its height, roughly 100 AD under Emperor Trajan, the Roman Empire was extraordinary. It controlled territory from Scotland to Syria, from Morocco to Mesopotamia. It had a sophisticated road network connecting everything, a postal system, a legal system, trade that stretched from China to Britain, and crucially, Rome had a stable currency, the silver denarius. Roman coins were made of real silver. Merchants, soldiers, and citizens trusted them completely. You could take a Roman coin anywhere in the empire, and it was worth exactly what it said. This stability was the foundation of the entire economy. Trade worked because money was reliable. Soldiers were paid in reliable currency. Tax collectors could measure real value. The entire enormous machine of the empire ran smoothly because everyone agreed on what money was worth. This sounds simple, but it is actually one of the most difficult things for any civilization to maintain. The moment you break trust in money, the moment people stop believing currency is worth what it says, everything starts to unravel. Rome broke that trust, and they did it to themselves.
Here is where it gets interesting, and a little bit disturbing. Roman emperors discovered a trick, a sneaky, short-term trick that felt like a solution but was actually slowly poisoning the economy. They started mixing cheap metals into their silver coins. In the early days of the empire, the denarius was nearly 100% pure silver. By the 200s AD, it was less than 5% silver. The rest was bronze and copper. So what actually happened? Emperors needed money for wars, for construction projects, for paying the army, which kept getting bigger and more expensive. But tax revenues were not keeping up. So instead of cutting spending or raising taxes, they secretly made their coins worth less. They collected old coins, melted them down, mixed in cheaper metals, and then used that metal to mint more coins. More coins, same amount of real silver. Each individual coin worth less. This is exactly what we call inflation, creating more money without creating more real value. And just like today, when too much money chases too few goods, prices go up. In Rome, wheat prices that had been stable for centuries started rising, then rising faster, then rising out of control. By the 200s AD, prices were rising so fast that merchants stopped accepting coins and started demanding payment in actual physical goods. When people stop trusting the money, the economy breaks down.
Once Rome started debasing its currency, it could not stop. This is the trap of inflation. Here is how the spiral worked. Step 1. Emperor needs more money. Debase the coins, create inflation. Step 2. Inflation means soldiers' wages buy less. Soldiers demand higher wages. Step 3. Higher wages mean the emperor needs even more money. Debase the coins more. More inflation. Step 4. Merchants realize the coins are worthless. They raise prices to compensate. More inflation. Step 5. Citizens hoard real goods instead of holding currency. Less economic activity. Less tax revenue. Step 6. Less tax revenue means the emperor needs to debase more coins. Round and round, each step making the next step worse. By the 200s and 300s AD, Rome was experiencing what we would now recognize as hyperinflation. Prices were rising by hundreds of %. Emperor Diocletian tried to fix this in 301 AD by issuing an edict on maximum prices. He set prices for thousands of goods. The penalty for selling above the fixed price? Death. Did it work? No. It made things worse. Merchants simply stopped selling goods rather than sell at a loss. Shortages appeared everywhere. Rome's government was trying to solve an economic problem with force. And it failed, just as it always does. Here is the part of Rome's story that almost nobody talks about: the supply chain. At its peak, Rome was a city of over 1 million people. This was extraordinary for the ancient world, and feeding 1 million people required an incredibly complex system. Grain from Egypt, olive oil from Spain, wine from France, meat from the frontier regions, all of it flowing into Rome constantly through an enormous network of ships, roads, and trading posts. This system required stable money. Merchants needed to know that the coins they received today would still be worth something tomorrow. Otherwise, why trade at all? As inflation destroyed the value of Roman currency, this system started breaking down. Merchants became reluctant to accept payment in Roman coins. They demanded gold or goods instead. Trade slowed down. Supply chains broke. Cities that depended on imported food started experiencing shortages. People left cities to go back to farming their own food. The tax base shrank. The roads and infrastructure fell into disrepair because there was no money to maintain them. The economy was contracting, slowly at first, then faster. The barbarian invasions that finally toppled Rome were only possible because Roman infrastructure and defenses had already been so weakened. The barbarians did not kill Rome. They just walked through the door that economics had already broken open.
So let us step back and see the full picture. The most powerful empire in the ancient world destroyed itself economically, not through military defeat, not through natural disaster, through a series of very bad financial decisions that compounded over decades. They spent more than they earned. They created money out of thin air. They triggered inflation. They tried to control prices by force. They broke their own supply chains, and they watched the entire system slowly collapse. Does any of this sound familiar? Modern economists study the Roman collapse very carefully because the same patterns appear again and again in history, and every time the results are remarkably similar. The details change. The emperors become presidents. The denarius becomes the dollar, but the economics stays the same. Inflation is not just a modern problem. It is one of the oldest and most destructive forces in economic history. And Rome is the ultimate case study. If this video changed how you see ancient history and modern economics, hit that like button. Share it with anyone who thinks inflation is just a headline. Subscribe to OP Vault. Next week we go even deeper. Next up, petrodollars, how oil turned desert kingdoms into world powers. See you there.